Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and Blizzcon is right around the corner with its doors open to the public as of this weekend, starting on Friday, November the 3rd. With a brand new schedule lineup full of new announcements, from an opening ceremony as well as what's coming next for every single one of the major titles from World of Warcraft, Retail, and Classic, Overwatch 2, Diablo 4, and whatever else they introduce on the showcase floor. And many in the community are excited for some of the newest updates. And it's not uncommon for them to hold some of the biggest surprises for BlizzCon specifically, whether it is new cinematics for some of the expansions or even brand new games, as well as major content updates following the next few weeks for any of their current titles. And many have already been able to voice their predictions of what they think will be displayed during these upcoming BlizzCon announcements, and I wanted to throw my hat into the ring and go over some of my own predictions of what I think we will likely see going forward, with a large focus on World of Warcraft for Retail, Classic or Classic Plus specifically, since that's somewhat of my wheelhouse. So let's go over some of my personal predictions days before BlizzCon is officially upon us. But right before we dive into this video, most of you guys watching any of the videos on the channel are still not subscribed. However, the more of you remind, the more of you do. So let's keep it going. Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell if you're watching these videos anyway. Especially if you want to get more regular content regarding Dragonflight 10.2 or any of the future updates going forward. Based on the most recent broadcast schedule available, we know that the games that are going to be frontline and center for BlizzCon are going to be World of Warcraft as well as WoW Classic, Overwatch 2, Diablo 4, Hearthstone, as well as the new mobile title Warcraft Rumble. However, I did see many in the community point out that there's a pretty big gap between the opening ceremony and then WoW What's Next panel. And within that 2.5 hour gap, we may see other panels for other titles. There's a good chance that the previously announced survival game, codenamed Odyssey, could be showcased. Even though at the time of the announcement the game was super early into development and it's a survival title, which isn't something that Blizzard has done in the past, we may see maybe a cinematic, or maybe some concept art, or maybe even an update on how the development is going. Although it's hard to imagine what other games could fit into that time slot. Things like StarCraft as well as Heroes of the Storm are other Blizzard titles, but those have been mostly shelved. But the recent Microsoft acquisition does inspire like a chance of confidence, because Microsoft themselves have expressed interest in RTS titles. Even though they're not massive, they have been known as the company that does still support the genre, and we heard some rumblings earlier in the months that may suggest there is some interest in RTS games specifically like StarCraft or Warcraft. As for the other titles, a lot of players in the Diablo community expect some kind of an expansion or some kind of a massive in-game addition, maybe even another playable class, with many looking to see the Paladin, which is something that I would want to see also, as well as more seasons and maybe even more in-game tuning. Hearthstone, I'm expecting yet another expansion. For Overwatch, I expect even more announcements for future seasons, with maybe big in-game events, also massive tuning changes, and potentially even a brand new game mode. Then we come to World of Warcraft, starting with the retail, and I'm 99% sure that a new expansion is being announced. Whether it is the recent leak of the Avalorian expansion, which would explore more of the Titan and Dwarvish themes, with us exploring a brand new continent, maybe on the other side of Azeroth, or maybe instead it'll be a Cosmic Powers expansion, similar to Legion, similar to Shadowlands, where we'll be fighting some cosmic forces like a light versus void, which is a concept that many in the community have always wanted to see realized since the end of Legion, where we saw a Naru try to subjugate Illidan, the demon hunter incarnate that's infused with Fel, into the light, under the light, against his will, while at the same time we were being assisted by a denizen of the void, Locust Walker. Between that cinematic and the Argus storyline, we get to see that the void and the light are just two opposing cosmic forces, similar to the powers of death of the Shadowlands, or the Fel of the Demonic Legion, or the powers of Order of Titans. All of them are cosmic forces. They're not inherently good or bad, they simply oppose one another. And we even get to see the light as a villainous force if we played through the Makar questline to earn that allied race. We saw Yrel lead a Lightforged crusade all through the alternate Draenor to try to subjugate any and everyone standing in their path. And these plot points of light versus the void have been established throughout now multiple expansions of World of Warcraft, which creates many little threads that, if weaved together, could potentially become the concept of the next major expansion. And as much as I would love to see a patch 10.3 during the BlizzCon announcements, I feel like that is still unlikely. Based on the data mining for 10.2, it looks like 10.2 will be the final patch of Dragonflight, since this is the patch that brings in an ahead of the curve mount as well as an infinite augment ruin, which are both features that are saved towards the tail end of an expansion. I guess it is possible that maybe they are still gonna have a 10.3 and they're just simply breaking the norm by adding these things early, but it's very difficult to go against the pattern. Because I think 10.3 could actually be a real patch, with a Rurikron storyline still unfinished. We've been able to take down Razagath during the first raid of this expansion, with Veronath joining the aspects after the second raid, and with us facing Farak in the patch 10.2. But Rurikron's story is still untold, and while we did get to fight him for a short moment in Dawn of the Infinite, the Incarnate was able to escape that encounter mostly unscathed. Then we have the final boss of Dragonflight that is also escaped from death. And they've done this before where they have a dungeon boss escape at the last second and then show up as a raid boss after. In fact, during Shadowlands, one of the Venthyr dungeons, Sanguine Depths, had Khal as the final boss, and Khal retreats when she hits 50% health, to then show up as a penultimate boss before Denathrius for the first tier of Castle Nathria, which makes me think that the final boss of Brackenhide will show up at a later time. When it comes to the Dragonflights themselves, not all of them were able to tell their story. We've seen the reformation of the Blue Dragonflight, the fight against the Infinites with the Bronze Dragonflight, the crowning of a new aspect for the Black Dragonflight, and will be assisting the Green Dragonflight for the patch 10.2. And it makes me feel like the Red Dragonflight still has a story to tell. Then there's the Tyr himself, and that story is unfinished since Tyr is not restored yet. And they even started a new thread between the Infinite Dragonflight and the Bronze. And outside of storylines, the pacing for this expansion has been much better than the previous expansion of Shadowlands, which had a very drawn-out 9-month season of Season 1, which ended up shortening every other season. So far, Dragonflight's pacing has been more akin to Legion, or Battle for Azeroth, where there was 4 separate seasons and 4 separate raid tiers, with even a smaller 2-boss or 3-boss raid somewhere in the middle. And to me, it just feels like there's plenty of time to have a proper 10.2 as well as a 10.3. However, I've mostly accepted based on the patterns observed in PTR, the 10.2 is probably the final patch. However, we do know that 10.2.5 is very likely to hit PTR testing very soon, and they will probably dive into that during Blizzcon, and maybe even give us a glimpse of 10.2.7 as well as the next expansion. Very excited to see what they will do for 10.2.5 and 10.2.7 because they've done a great job with it so far, with all friendly catch-ups, more cosmetics and collectibles to obtain, as well as all the fantastic class changes and revamps that I've enjoyed following over the time in Dragonflight. Besides retail, we also have Classic Cataclysm, and it makes sense to announce the next expansion that follows, Classic Wrath. Though something tells me that this classic expansion will likely have a lot more changes based on players' feedback, as we seem to do more and more of that as we stray further from the original classic vanilla, which has gotten basically no changes. Then we saw small balance tunings for things like Burning Crusade Classic with the Paladin seal like Seal of Blood. Initially, Seal of Blood was a unique Blood Oath only seal that did far more damage than its alliance counterpart Seal of Vengeance. But for TBC Classic specifically, they added an Alliance Paladin Seal of the Martyr, which was Seal of Blood equivalent to promote better parity between Horde and the Alliance Paladins. Wrath Classic added even more changes also by first of all disabling Random Group Finder to allow it to have a little bit more community focus. Wrath Classic also eventually added Heroic Plus dungeons, which offered a higher difficulty of 5-man heroic content with increased end of dungeon rewards, as well as added affixes, which were loosely similar to the retail's Mythic Plus dungeons. Cata Classic will likely have even more changes than before, from class tuning or even basic convenience options, and maybe even additional features that the initial launch did not have. When it comes to talking about Classic, we also gotta mention Classic Plus, and I believe some form of Classic Plus is happening during BlizzCon, but I don't really know what it may look like. Initially, a leak suggested that Classic Plus would be an expansion of the original vanilla WoW, just with more content, more zones, and more questlines. However, I do believe it is possible that we may see something similar to like a seasonal mode for Classic, kind of like how Classic Hardcore ended up turning out. Some kind of a game mode or a mechanic that makes you want to level another character for the replayability value. Without a doubt, Classic Hardcore has been wildly successful, specifically for its longevity but also for its risk-reward gameplay. And in my mind, if they're not going to do an expansion for Classic WoW with Classic Plus, instead it will be another game mode similar to Classic Hardcore that will likely leverage the best part of the Hardcore mode, specifically for its replayability, but also it could continue the risk factor of permadeath or even add other affixes or challenges or hurdles for you to overcome during your leveling journey. But one thing's for certain, whether it's an expansion or simply another game mode for Classic, I do believe they'll add more support towards the original Classic Vanilla WoW. And that's going to be the full list of my own predictions of what I think is going to be happening in this upcoming BlizzCon. I am very much hoping to be surprised by patch 10.3, even though I don't think it's actually going to happen. Though I am excited to see what's happening next for Classic WoW, especially for a potential Classic Plus expansion, or what's coming for the next chapter of World of Warcraft following Dragonflight. I want to thank all of you so much for watching this video and hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As per usual, if you guys enjoyed this video or found it informative, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And as always, in the description of every single video and live stream, we have a link to our Discord community channel. Probably the best place to reach out to me directly in case you want to let me know what you thought about this video or hang out with the rest of the community to discuss some of the upcoming changes. Join our Discord to become part of the community. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.